There is someone in your life right now who is slowly poisoning your spirit, and you have been calling it loyalty. You have been calling it faithfulness. You have been calling it love. But what God calls it is disobedience. And the most painful part is not that they are hurting you. The most painful part is that you are letting them stay. Today, I need to show you something that most Christians are not ready to hear, but desperately need to understand. We are going to talk about 6 types of friends that God commands you to walk away from. Not because he wants you to be alone, not because he is cruel or indifferent to your need for companionship, but because some friendships are costing you far more than you realize, and the longer you cling to them, the more you lose of the person God created you to become. By the time we reach the end of this message, you will know exactly who these people are, and more importantly, you will have the courage to do what must be done. Let me begin with a question that may cut deeper than you expect. Have you ever noticed how much of your spiritual struggle can be traced back to the people you spend the most time with? Not the enemies who attack you from the outside, but the friends who drain you from the inside, the ones who smile at you while slowly starving your faith, the ones who claim to love you while subtly redirecting your steps away from God's purpose. Scripture is not silent about this. Proverbs 12:26 says, "The righteous choose their friends carefully, but the way of the wicked leads them astray." Notice that word, carefully. Friendship is not random. It is not automatic. It is a choice. And the Bible makes it abundantly clear that the wrong choice of friendship can redirect your entire spiritual life without you ever noticing it happened. It is a slow drift, a gradual compromise, a quiet surrender of the standards God placed within you. You see, not every person who smiles at you is for you. Not every person who stays close is safe. And today, we are going to identify the 6 types God specifically warns about. But before we do, I need you to understand something crucial. This is not about being judgmental. This is not about becoming cold and isolated. This is about spiritual survival. The enemy knows that he cannot destroy you from the outside if you are protected by the blood of Christ. So he uses a different strategy. He sends people into your life who appear to be friends, people who speak your language, share your history, and occupy your heart. But their presence is slowly eroding your spiritual foundation. And the most deceptive part is that you often do not recognize them because they have been there for years. They are not strangers. They are not obvious enemies. They are familiar, comfortable, and trusted. And that is exactly why they are so dangerous. Let me tell you about a season in my own life that taught me one of the most painful but necessary lessons about friendship. I had a close friend, someone I trusted deeply, someone I shared things with that I would never share publicly, personal struggles, family situations, spiritual doubts I was working through in the quiet of my own heart. I believed our conversations were sacred. I believed that what was spoken in confidence would remain between us. Then one day I walked into a gathering of mutual friends and heard my own words coming out of someone else's mouth. Not just the general topic, not just the broad idea, but the exact details, the specific situation, the private confession I had shared in confidence with one person, and they had shared it with everyone. The betrayal was devastating, but what hurt even more was realizing that it had been happening for much longer than I knew. The things I thought were private had been used as currency to make that friend appear closer to others, to fill conversations when they had nothing else to offer. That is the first type of friend you must release, the gossip friend. This is the friend whose mouth is a revolving door, and everything you share with them walks straight through it. Proverbs 20:19 gives a direct command about this. A gossip betrays a confidence, so avoid anyone who talks too much. The word is avoid. Not confront and hope they change. Not give them another chance. Avoid. Because a person who shares your secrets with others will eventually share someone else's secrets with you. And that cycle of broken trust becomes the foundation of a friendship built on sand. If you have a friend who knows everyone's business, they know yours too, and they are sharing it. They may disguise it as concern. They may frame it as prayer request, but the fruit is the same: division, distrust, and a constant sense that nothing you say is truly safe. That is not friendship. That is a leak in the hull of your soul, and if you do not patch it, you will sink. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. You are thinking, but this person has been my friend for years. We have history. I can't just walk away. And I understand that. I truly do. The weight of history is heavy. The comfort of familiarity is powerful. But I need you to ask yourself a different question. What has that history cost you? What does that familiarity cost you? How many times have you held back from sharing something important because you knew it would become public knowledge within days? How many times have you guarded your heart because you knew your words would not be safe? A friendship that requires you to constantly protect yourself is not a friendship at all. It is a performance, and you are the one doing all the performing. The second type of friend you must release is the anger-driven friend. This is the friend whose life is a constant storm, and they want you standing in it with them. We all know this person. They are perpetually offended, perpetually in conflict, perpetually angry at someone, something, some situation. They move through life like a fire that never runs out of fuel, and they disguise it well, sometimes as passion, sometimes as justice, sometimes as just being real or honest. But underneath it all is a spirit that is not from God, and it is contagious. I once had a friend like this. Every conversation was a complaint. Every encounter involved a new enemy they were fighting. Every meeting ended with me feeling agitated, stirred up, and carrying anger that was not even mine to begin with. I would leave their presence and snap at my family for no reason. I would carry their offenses home like unwanted baggage. I would find myself replaying their conflicts in my mind, feeling defensive about things that had nothing to do with me. It took me months to realize that I was not just observing their anger, I was absorbing it. Proverbs 22:24-25 gives one of the most specific friendship warnings in all of Scripture. Do not make friends with a hot-tempered person. Do not associate with one easily angered, or you may learn their ways and get yourself ensnared. The warning is not that they will hurt you directly. The warning is that you will become like them. Anger is contagious. And if you spend enough time with an angry person, their spirit will transfer to you slowly and visibly, but inevitably. You cannot be the peacemaker God called you to be if your closest friend is a fire starter. You cannot be a vessel of grace if you are constantly being filled with resentment. You cannot hear the still small voice of God if your ears are ringing with the noise of someone else's outrage. And this is where the enemy is cunning. He knows that if he can keep you stirred up, offended, and reactive, you will be completely ineffective for the kingdom. You will be too busy fighting battles that are not yours to fight the battles that actually matter. So he sends you friends who are always angry, always offended, always ready to draw you into their conflicts, and you, thinking you are being loyal, join them in their outrage. But God is asking you to step back. He is asking you to see that this is not loyalty, it is captivity. And he is calling you to freedom. The third type of friend you must release is the envious friend. This is the friend who loves you as long as you never surpass them. This type is the hardest to detect because they look exactly like a supportive friend until one specific moment. The moment you are blessed, the moment you are promoted, the moment God answers a prayer they were still waiting on, and in that moment, the mask cracks. I remember sharing some wonderful news with a friend I had known for years. I expected excitement. I expected celebration. What I received instead was a brief, forced smile followed by a complete change of subject. No questions asked, no shared joy, just a cold pivot to something else as if my blessing was an inconvenience to their day. Over time, I noticed a pattern. When things were difficult for me, this friend was the most present, the most caring, the most available. But when things went well for me, they disappeared, became distant, found reasons not to be around. And I finally understood their friendship was not built on love, it was built on comparison. And as long as I was behind them, I was safe to be close to. But the moment I moved ahead, I became a threat. Proverbs 14:30 says, "A heart at peace gives life to the body, but envy rots the bones." If someone's love for you depends on you never exceeding them, that is not friendship. That is a cage with a smile painted on the bars. Envy is a spiritual poison, and it will destroy everything it touches. It will destroy your joy. It will destroy your confidence. It will make you hesitant to share your victories because you know they will not be celebrated. And eventually, you will find yourself shrinking, playing small, hiding your blessings just to keep the peace. That is not what God wants for you. He wants you to shine. He wants you to flourish. And He will never ask you to dim your light to make someone else comfortable. If a friend cannot celebrate your success, they are not your friend. They are a competitor disguised as a companion. Now, I know this is difficult. I know that recognizing envy in someone you love feels like betrayal all over again. But you need to understand something. Their envy is not your problem to fix. You cannot love them out of it. You cannot shrink enough to make them feel secure. Only God can heal that wound, and He may need to use distance to do it. If you stay close, you will only become a constant reminder of what they lack. And that will not help them. It will only hurt you. But there is something deeper here that many believers never see. The next three types are the ones most Christians refuse to recognize because they touch on areas we have been conditioned to ignore. The fourth type is the spiritually indifferent friend. This is the friend who does not attack your faith. They simply make it irrelevant. I want to be very careful here because this is the most misunderstood type on this list. I am not talking about friends who are not yet believers. We are called to love everyone and to be a light in the world. Jesus Himself ate with sinners and spent time with people far from God. He was called a friend of tax collectors and sinners, and He did not run from that. What I am talking about is something very specific. A close inner circle friend who has been around the gospel, who has heard the truth, who knows what you believe and has made a settled decision that none of it matters. And because of that settled indifference, every time you are with them, your faith feels like an awkward guest at the table. Something to be tolerated, not engaged with. Something you have to hide or minimize to keep the friendship comfortable. I knew a young believer who had a best friend like this. They had been close since childhood. But as his faith grew, the distance between their values became a canyon. Every time he tried to share what God was doing in his life, his friend would change the subject. Every time he suggested praying together, his friend would make a joke. And slowly, without realizing it, he stopped mentioning God in that friend's presence altogether. His faith did not die, it just went quiet. And a quiet faith is a shrinking faith. He was not being persecuted, he was not being attacked, he was being ignored. And somehow that was worse, because when your faith is ignored by someone close to you, you start to wonder if it matters at all. 2 Corinthians 6:14 asks, "What fellowship can light have with darkness?" This is not about judging someone who does not believe. It is about recognizing that if your closest friend makes your faith feel like a burden to carry rather than a fire to share, that closeness is costing you something eternal. You are not called to be a missionary to your inner circle. You are called to be a brother or sister. And if they are not moving toward God, they are moving away from Him. And if you are walking with them, you are walking away too. The fifth type is the controlling friend. This is the friend who does not share your life. They manage it. Control rarely announces itself. It creeps in wearing the costume of care. It sounds like, "I'm just looking out for you." It sounds like you shouldn't make that decision without talking to me first. It sounds like, why did you hang out with them without telling me? And before you realize what is happening, you are living your life according to someone else's approval rather than God's direction. I once watched a friendship like this from the outside. A brother in our small group had a friend who needed to be involved in every decision he made. From his job to his church involvement to who he spent time with. If he made a choice without consulting this friend first, there would be guilt, manipulation, silent treatment, or passive-aggressive comments designed to make him feel he had done something wrong. It took years before this brother realized that what he was calling friendship was actually captivity. The friend was not supporting him. They were managing him. And the most alarming part was that whenever God prompted him to do something bold, start a ministry, take a step of faith, pursue a calling, the controlling friend was always the first voice to discourage it. Not because it was a bad idea, but because it was not their idea. They needed to be the source of every decision, and anything that came from outside their control was a threat. Galatians 5:1 says, "It is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Stand firm then, and do not let yourselves be burdened again by a yoke of slavery." If a friend makes you feel guilty for following God's leading without their permission, that is not friendship. That is a yoke, and Christ already removed that from your shoulders. You are not required to submit your life to the approval of anyone but God. And if someone cannot handle that, they are not your friend. They are your judge. And judges are not friends. The sixth and final type is the friend who only appears in your season of blessing. This is the friend who loves your blessings more than they love you. You will recognize this friend by one simple test. Where are they when things go wrong? Where are they when the money runs dry? The ministry struggles. The marriage hits turbulence. The health fails. Where are they when you have nothing to offer except your need? I have experienced this firsthand, and it was one of the most clarifying moments of my spiritual life. There was a season when God blessed me in a very visible way, and during that season, my phone never stopped ringing. Invitations poured in. People wanted to be associated with what God was doing. But when the season shifted, when testing came, when difficulty arrived, when the visible blessing was temporarily hidden, the phone went silent. The invitations stopped, and I discovered something sobering about the people I had believed were friends. They were not drawn to me. They were drawn to my season. And there is an enormous difference between those two things. Proverbs 19:4 makes this painfully clear. Wealth attracts many friends, but even the closest friend of the poor person deserts them. And Proverbs 19:6 adds, "Many curry favor with a ruler, and everyone is the friend of one who gives gifts." These verses were written thousands of years ago, but they describe something that happens in churches and Christian communities every single day. If someone only calls when you are thriving and vanishes when you are struggling, they are not your friend. They are a spectator with a front row ticket to your success. And the moment the show changes, their seat will be empty. Now I need to pause here because I know what some of you are feeling. I know that some of you have just seen a face, some of you have just recognized a name, and your heart is racing because you know exactly who I am talking about. But you are also terrified. You are terrified of the loneliness that might follow. You are terrified of the confrontation. You are terrified of hurting someone. And I understand all of that, but I need you to understand something even more important. Walking away from a friendship is one of the hardest things God will ever ask you to do because it feels like the opposite of everything you were taught. Love everyone. Be loyal, forgive endlessly, turn the other cheek. And those principles are true, and they are beautiful. But none of them require you to keep your inner circle open to people who are actively damaging your spirit, redirecting your faith, or consuming the peace God gave you to steward. There is a difference between loving someone and giving them unlimited access to your life. Jesus loved the multitudes. He taught them. He healed them. He wept for them. But his inner circle was three: Peter, James, John. Even the Son of God was intentional about who he allowed closest. You see, the enemy wants you to believe that you are being unloving by setting boundaries. He wants you to believe that loyalty means staying no matter what. But that is a lie. Loyalty to a friend who is destroying you is not loyalty, it is self-destruction. And God never called you to self-destruction. He called you to life, and life abundantly. Proverbs 4:23 says, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." Guarding your heart does not mean closing it. It means being wise about who holds the key. Not everyone deserves access to the depths of your soul. Not everyone has earned the right to speak into your decisions. Not everyone is qualified to influence your direction. God is not calling you to loneliness. He is calling you to alignment. He is preparing friendships for you that will sharpen you, challenge you, pray for you, and walk with you into every season, not just the ones that benefit them. But you cannot receive those friendships while you are clinging to the ones that are holding you back. You have to let go. You have to release. You have to trust him enough to create space for what he wants to give you. Now, I know that some of you are thinking, but what if I release these friends and no one else comes? What if I end up alone? That is the fear that keeps you stuck. But I want to tell you something. God is not a negligent father. He does not take something away without replacing it with something better. He does not call you to obedience and then abandon you in the wilderness. He is preparing friendships for you that will exceed anything you have ever known. Friendships that are rooted in purpose, not convenience. Friendships that are anchored in prayer, not gossip. Friendships that build you up instead of draining you dry. But you have to trust him enough to let go of the counterfeit to receive the genuine. Let me share something with you that changed my life. When I finally released those toxic friendships, I went through a season of loneliness. It was painful. There were nights when I questioned if I had made the right choice. But in that season of emptiness, God began to fill the void with something I had never experienced before. He filled it with himself. He became my closest friend. He became my confidant. He became the one I turned to first, not last. And in that intimacy, he began to bring people into my life who were aligned with his purpose, people who spoke truth in love, people who rejoiced in my victories and wept in my sorrows, people who prayed for me without needing to know every detail, people who respected my boundaries because they had healthy ones of their own. Those friendships were not accidents, they were gifts. And they only came after I had the courage to release what was not meant to stay. If this message has revealed something to you today, if you have recognized one of these 6 types in your life, I want you to do something that takes courage. I want you to make a declaration. Say it in your heart. Say it out loud. Say it with conviction. Lord, I release every friendship that is not from you. I release the gossip. I release the anger, I release the envy, I release the spiritual indifference, I release the control, I release the fair weather friend. I trust you with my relationships, and I believe you will replace what I release with what you have prepared for me. That is not a prayer of rejection. It is a prayer of trust. It is a prayer that says, God, I trust you more than I trust my own loneliness. If you believe that God is ready to do this work in your life, if you are ready to step into the freedom he is calling you to, then let your faith be known. If this message has touched your heart, write in the comments, Lord, I trust you with my friendships. Let that declaration be a marker in your spiritual journey. A line in the sand that says you will no longer allow unhealthy connections to determine your destiny. And if you know someone who is being damaged by a friendship, they are too loyal to leave, consider sharing this message with them. It could be the word that finally sets them free. the word that gives them permission to choose their spiritual health over their relational comfort, the word that opens their eyes to see what they have been too close to recognize. And if this message is helping you, if it is giving you clarity and courage, consider supporting this work so it can reach others who are silently suffering in the same way. There are people out there who are being drained by friendships they cannot name, trapped by loyalty they cannot escape. Your support can help extend this message to them. It can be the lifeline they have been praying for. As we come to the end of this message, I want you to carry something with you, something that will stay in your heart long after these words fade. Friendship is not a burden you are called to bear. It is a gift you are called to steward. And like any gift, it can be abused. It can be distorted. It can become something that harms rather than heals. But God is giving you permission today to step back. He is giving you permission to evaluate. He is giving you permission to release. And He is promising that what He has for you on the other side of that release is better than anything you are holding on to now. Do not be afraid of the loneliness. The loneliness is temporary, but the freedom is eternal. Do not be afraid of the confrontation. The confrontation may be painful, but the peace that follows is priceless. Do not be afraid of the change. The change is the doorway to everything God has been preparing for you. He is not taking something away from you. He is clearing the ground so He can build something greater. Trust Him with your friendships. Trust Him with your heart. Trust Him with your future. He has never failed you, and He will not start now. May you have the courage to release what is not from Him. May you have the faith to trust Him in the waiting. And may you experience the profound freedom that comes when you finally surround yourself with people who are for you, not just with you. God bless you deeply, my brother, my sister. Go in peace and walk in freedom. Until we meet again,